Recognize the gentlelady from Virginia, Ms. McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ranking Member McGovern for allowing further amendments to this bill. I think so. Okay. My amendment would ensure that the proceeds of any spectrum licensing, allocation, or auction won't line the pockets of the president, a special government official, any other government official, or their families. It would also ensure that the FCC does not collude with the president or any other government official or their family to influence the outcomes of their personal legal battles. But spoiler alert, this amendment's probably not going to pass. So I want to take the rest of my time to talk about this big bad billionaire bonus that benefits the wealthiest 10% of Americans at the expense of the poorest 10%. It shifts costs to states that are already struggling to fill massive holes that they are seeing from the Trump administration's funding freezes. They are trying to take on the burden of more responsibility shifted to them, whether from the Department of Education or these new work requirements, or now to pay for nutrition benefits for the first time ever. States are going to be left in the untenable position of having to raise their own taxes or gutting even more services as a result. This bill does nothing to address the underlying costs of health care, child care, groceries, energy bills, or anything else. And why are we rushing through this bill to the point where the bulk of it is being discussed in the middle of the night while everybody else is sleeping? What is the rush? Are the wealthiest few in that big of a hurry to get richer? Is there a flash sale on yachts that I don't know about? We've had these markups in the middle of the night that include provisions that Republicans didn't even know about. Like the Republicans on the Energy and Commerce Committee who were caught off guard by the Medicaid provisions imposing copays of up to $35 on an individual who earns up to $300 a week. They didn't know that if somebody was kicked off of Medicaid because they couldn't meet burdensome work paper requirements to prove that they're working, like the 18,000 Arkansas individuals who were kicked off when they couldn't meet work requirements even though they were working, these folks that get kicked off wouldn't be eligible for subsidies to purchase marketplace plans that they otherwise couldn't afford. And that came as a surprise to my colleagues in the E&C committee in the middle of the night. And somewhere between the E&C marathon markup and here, a provision was added that would cut the federal match for Medicaid in states that dare to provide health care to lawfully present immigrants. That means that Virginia, that covers lawfully present pregnant women and children, could face a cut in the federal match that would trigger an unwinding of Medicaid expansion that would cost hundreds of thousands of Virginians their health insurance, put our providers, especially our rural hospitals, at risk of closing their doors. Now I heard there'll be at least one manager's amendment that might fix that. But who knows? Who knows what will happen once the Freedom Caucus, I think they've already returned from the White House, but who knows what they've demanded and what they've gotten. And they want to kick even more people off of their health insurance. But what else is buried in this bill? What's going to be buried in the manager's amendment? What's going to be buried in the bill that we see for the first time on the floor that we won't have time to take back to stakeholders or the American people? And will this be another one of those moments where we rush through a big, massive bill and then hope that the Senate saves the House from its worst impulse? Plain and simple, I ask again, what's the rush? What is the rush of a bill that will harm children? That will say to a family, now even though you legally cannot leave your child at home when they're 7, 8, 9, 10, we're going to assume that you can go to work once they reach 7. Even though I can tell you when my son was 7, if left at home to take care of himself, he probably would have burned the house down. Have we thought through? Have we thought through the unintended consequences of some of the provisions that are buried in this bill, surprising even Republicans that don't like them? I hope we take our time, we do this right, because you know if we mess it up, the harm is not going to be to us. It's going to be to the most vulnerable that we represent. And with that, I yield back.